How you doing, my anatomy friends? Enjoying the smoky day off? Actually, speaking of smoke, as I'm looking out the window over here, it's not nearly as bad as I think everybody thought it would be. It doesn't even look too bad. Might even try to ride the bicycle today. All right, these notes are mainly for you cohort 2 guys. Cohort 1, you've pretty much seen this and you know what you got to do for your assignment. So you can turn off the video now and go work on stuff. But cohort 2, we're going to get started. All right, first thing you need to do is take out, I can't even remember, it's been so long since I've seen you guys, I can't even remember if you have the sheets. But if you have the sheets, pull out your class log. Looks something like that. And let's fill it out. So today's date is the 20th of August, which is kind of crazy to me to think that today is the 20th. Hopefully you do a better job fitting 820 in there than I just did. I'm just drawing it large so you can see it. I like to tell myself. It's not that I have crappy handwriting, which I kind of do. Okay. All right, our objective today, we're going to look at, the objective is going to be the geography of the human body. Oh, is it going to fit? Barely. Okay. So this is kind of important in anatomical terms, is because it's got its own language, and people need these languages, especially professionals. If you're a first responder, a nurse, doctor, when you're communicating with each other, it's got to be on point. Everybody has to, if you say something, everybody needs to know what you're talking about. If you refer to a certain location of the body, it should instantly, they're going, yeah, they should see it in your mind. It's right there. Everybody knows what everybody's talking about. And then that way mistakes aren't going to happen. Okay. All right, so we'll do that. Geography of the human body. Now, the daily question that was on the board that you guys didn't see, it was another droodle. So I'll draw it for you real quick. Remember, a droodle is just a simple picture made of geometric shapes that tells a story. So the shapes we have today, we're going to have a circle within a circle. We'll throw a triangle up here, triangle up here, and then I'm going to do a line, throw a rectangle on it, a line, and a rectangle. Okay, so take a look at that. Right up here where it says DQ on your sheet, I'll put 3 arrows to make sure everybody can find the DQ. Tell me the story of what this droodle says. And then when I see you guys next, which will be next week, hopefully, unless something else happens, I'll tell you the answer. All right, let's start some notes. Just got to clear this off. Get rid of this. And spin the lungs around for good luck. Maybe we'll zoom them out. We'll come back to this program, do some stuff with it. It's kind of a cool view. But let's pop over to Photoshop. Okay, let me erase what we have on the board right now. Let's get going. Okay, let's call this, name of this notes will be Positions of the Body. Now, the first thing I want to say about the positions of the body. All the directions we're going to talk about, there's a name for this part, like the front of you, the back, the top, the bottom, the sides, the middle, all of that. the positions or the terms that we use are always going to be in reference to your subject, not your right and left. It's always the subject's right and left. So a lot of people miss that on the test and they end up getting everything completely backwards and they miss it. So let's write that down. I'll put a star because that's kind of important, not missing the questions on the test. Okay, so I'll say all terms are relative to the subject. And that deserves a couple underlines. Okay? All terms are relative to the subject. Now, before we dive into these terms, let's talk a little bit about the class you signed up for and what anatomy and physiology and what it means. So if we have the word anatomy and physiology. The roots of these words are Greek and Latin. So in Greek, the word ana means up. And the root tom means to cut. So literally, anatomy means cut up. So you study the body by cutting it up, see what's inside of it. Okay? Now, physiology, on the other hand, by the way, this is the second video I've made, and the battery died in the first one, so I had to start over. So I'm crossing my fingers on this one so that doesn't happen. Just a little side story for your amusement. Okay, so if we look here, physio means change. And LOG, most people know, is the study of. I'm not sure what's going on right here with my, can you guys see that? How that word just split? Don't know why. Anyways, so physiology is the study of change or the study of the function of the body. Okay? So anatomy is the study of structure. Physiology is the study of the function. All right. Let's go down here and look at some terms. So we'll just call these directional terms. So we'll write them down, look at the list, talk a little about the compass rose, and then we will go jump into that program and we'll identify some sides, some locations, all the good stuff. Okay, no particular order. First one is going to be posterior. What I want you to do is put in brackets, put a P, because we will abbreviate when we use these. So whenever you see a P on a diagram in the book, it's going to be posterior. And we have anterior. And superior. Opposite of superior is inferior. Most of these terms exist in pairs. Okay, we use an I for that. Then we have lateral. L, which is paired up with medial. Put an M there. Then the really difficult to understand directional term of right. Kind of made me laugh. And then left We'll put LT for that because we already have the L for lateral. Then we'll go distal. Which will be a D. And we'll go proximal. Which will make PR, because we already used P. And then we'll finish up, the last two will be Ipsilateral. We don't need a letter for that one because it's not going to end up on a diagram. And the opposite of ipsilateral is contralateral. Okay, so those are our basic directional terms. You'll be learning some other locations and a couple more specialized terms, but right now we'll stick with those. Those will get us quite a bit. Okay, just easy definitions. Posterior, it means the back or behind. Anterior is the front. Superior means above. Inferior means below. Lateral means towards the side. Well, we'll say towards the outside or just side. Medial is towards the midline. Right means right. Left means left. But remember, it's always the subject's right or left, not your right or left. Okay. Distal's a little bit different. If you were to imagine, so you have the human body. If you had a center mass point, right where my fist is right here would be the center mass point of the body. If something is distal, that means, and you only usually use distal when we're talking fingers, arms, legs, stuff like that, on limbs. So if we look at this part of my arm, the forearm, this is the distal part of my forearm because compared to this end of my forearm, it's further from this center point, okay? So distal means furthest away. Okay, that would be the farthest from the center point. We'll just put CP. And proximal is that whatever that body part is, upper arm, humerus is the bone, maybe we'll go in radius and ulna. So the proximal is going to be the closest to the center point. Now, ipsilateral and contralateral, oh, let's made that random mark there. Ipsilateral means those are body parts that are on the same side. Contralateral are body parts that are on the opposite side. So for instance, my right hand is ipsilateral with my right foot, but my right hand is also contralateral with my left foot. Okay, that's how you use those. All right, now what we'll be working on the next few days, so you're going to take these terms, okay, all, the posterior, anterior, or right, P or an A, and you're going to use what's called a, let's see if we have room up here. It's called an anatomical compass rose. Compass rose on a normal map, it points to the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. Well, the anatomical compass rose points to posterior, anterior, superior, whatever. So for instance, let's say we had, I don't know, let me draw a bone here. Let's say we had the left Okay, here we have the left humerus. Okay, let's say that's the left humerus. Such a detailed drawing. Now, these directions are always going to refer to the subject, and the subject in this case is the left humerus. So what you would do if you would sketch this, and you'll see this in the anatomy book when you come back and look at it, you always draw, think of the X and Y axis of a graph. So start with that. The Y axis is always in line with wherever your subject is. So we'll go like this. Now, this is going to sound complicated and you won't get it at first. I'm just showing you how you use one of these. It's going to take practice. And then we'll go into that other program and we'll fool around with a couple. Okay, so I look at my list here. I need to fill in the compass rose points right here, okay, in the X and Y direction. Now, I said earlier that this is the humerus, so this would be this arm, okay? This upper arm, this is the bone. This part right here would be at the top, and this kind of bumpy part down here is down the elbow. Okay, so we know the elbow is furthest from the center point than the top is. So we go look for our word, and I look for furthest from the center point, and I see distal. So right here, I'm just going to put a D. So I put a D there. And then I get the opposite of that. Oh, sorry, I completely messed up, and it's on film. The closest point is proximal. So we go like that. The furthest point is going to be distal. Now, we have to think which side of this bone is closest to the midline and which is furthest away. Well, if this is the left humerus, so this part right here would be closest to the midpoint. So over here, I'm going to put medial. That's the medial side of the humerus, and this will be the lateral side of the humerus. And we'll get in, you're probably going, well, why don't you use right and left? Well, we'll talk about that later, and we'll practice it. And that was bad. What did I just do? Come back. There we go. Thought it was erased. Okay, if you need to slow down, the good thing about the videos, you can just pause it, you can write the list down, but make sure you have a list for this next part. Okay, here we are, and I closed the other program we were using so I could try to find just a single bone we could check out, and I found this femur that's been cut into a cross section. So if you ever want to know what the inside of your femur looks like, well, there it is. Now, using that list, so have that list open that we just made with all the directional terms. And let's make a compass rose. All right, so remember the first rule that you're going to want to know when you draw this, you draw the y-axis, so it should be oriented the same way as the length of whatever your subject is. So I drew that. So by y-axis, I mean as in that evil math stuff, there's our y-axis. Then you put your x-axis across, but the y-axis is going to set the shape for the whole compass. All right, so looking at that list, what we need to do, we need to find out what is the direction where I've drawn these question marks. Okay. Well, let's start at the top. So if you look at your list, at the top of the list, go figure, there is superior, which means above. So that this part of the area is the superior. Now, if you look down towards the bottom, you also have distal and proximal. I would probably change this from a superior, even though it is above, I would change it to the one that's kind of more specific to long bones or bones of the arms and hands and fingers. So remember that center mass point. So if you look at proximal and distal, the part of the bone or subject that's furthest from the center mass point would be distal, and the part that's closest would be proximal, because the pro and proximal means first. So instead of using superior here for this question mark, because it's a long bone, we are going to use proximal. So we put a P. That means we go down here and we use just the opposite, and we now put distal. So that means up here, I'll erase it. That is proximal, and that is distal. So right here, we can replace those question marks with a P. Oh, we got to put PR, sorry, because P stands for posterior, and a D. Okay. Now for this side, okay, we're looking at the front of the femur, okay? So this is the front side. So that means this is a right femur. So we need to erase that and put a lateral, because that's the lateral side. And then the opposite of lateral is going to be medial. And I'll put an M here because it works for both of them. It works for the compass rose, it works for the bone. Oops. It's all right. And we need to put, let me erase this a little bit. And make it shorter because we ran out of room. Okay, so then the lateral goes here, the medial goes here. We do our z-axis. And so that I said we are looking at the front of the bone. The term for front is anterior, so put an A there, and then we would put a P there. Okay, that would be the anatomical compass rose for this view of the femur, the right femur. Now, if I erase all this stuff, it shouldn't matter what direction. So if I take the femur, let's flip it some other way, because it's always relative. Let's put it like that. It is always relative to the subject. The sides don't change, or the directions don't change, just the compass rose does. So now I would put my line up with the length. So I'd go like that. This side here is still the proximal, so I go PR. That makes this the distal side. This side here is still the medial side, so this part here is going to be medial. That makes this side here is going to be lateral. And if I do the compass rose for the Z, okay, we're still looking at the side that is facing us is the back. So I put a P for posterior, and I put an A for anterior. And there you go. It's always referenced to the subject. Okay guys, I think that's plenty for today. So we got a lot of stuff to practice next time I see you. And that will be next week, I believe. So I am out of here.